So today we're going to expand double brackets when we have a coefficient on our, should say x term is greater than 1. Oh, it actually does. So that means on either one, it can be one of them, but as long as one of them has a coefficient. I've chose to put coefficients on both, kind of demonstrate what this can do. But where we actually might use this is, say, when we have problems pop up and they just tell you that you have some length on one side and some length on the other side that depends on x, and they will ask you to find the area. This would end up being your area calculations because we'd have a length and a width and we'd multiply them together. Don't worry if that kind of doesn't make sense right now because it's hard to explain it without seeing the question first, but we'll get into actually the solution of it. So once again, if you notice our steps, it does not change. So every single time we're timesing our first term in our first bracket by our first term in our second bracket, first term in our first times our first term or second term in our second bracket, second term in our first bracket by first term in our second bracket, and lastly, second term in our first bracket by second term in our second bracket. So we are going to do this step by step once again. So let's look at the very first one. We have 2x and we have 3x. So when I do these, just write it out exactly what we're doing. So we have 2x, we're timesing by 3x. It's a lot easier to see when it's on your page. We've done lots of these where we've simplified just multiplication or addition. So we have 2x times by 2. 2x times 2. Then we're going to skip to step 3. So we have 1 times by 3x. And lastly, for step 4, 1 times 2. So notice how I've done this with just they're both positive or adding something in the middle. It does work for any of the cases that we've done. So first, when we try and simplify these, remember we do number times number and then variable times variable. So 2 times 3 will simplify to 6. Then x times x is x squared. Then we have 2, well, it was just 1, right? So we have 2x times, don't know why that says 2 there, my apologies, that should be 2. So we have 2x times by 2, which is 4, and then x. And then we have 1 times 3x for our next term. So 1 times 3 is 3, and then simply x. And then lastly, we have 1 times 2, which is just 2. Once again, doesn't matter that we have those terms, the different powers of x, because we have to simplify those 2 in the middle, right? Add them together, we're going to find that that's 7x. So we have 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. So let's do one more method on the next page. So same thing, grid method. We've been doing this before. So we put our first bracket across the top, splitting it up and including our signs, and then second bracket down our left. So it's all about the setup with this one, and then visually it makes our math easier. Really, it doesn't do anything, but that's why some people like this because it's more visual. So now we can jump down to step 3 because we've done this before. So we do 2 times 3, and we're just going to get our 6. Then x times x, we get x squared. Okay. Then we do 3 times 1, which is 3, and simply x. We have 2 times 2, which is 4, and x. And lastly, we have 2 times 1, which is simply 2. So once again, just like we were doing with the other method, right, with our x squared term starting first, then here's a little part that we haven't been doing with our grid method before, but if you've noticed, it's been our diagonals that always have our term of x when we set it up. So we can just add those two terms together since we don't have to write down an x. So we're just going to add those two. So we're going to get our 7x right away. And then we will just add on our 2 here. So notice the things that it's changed in our expression, it's changed our coefficient in front of x term, now, or x squared term, now that we have one. And now it's not so easy to see where we get our middle term from. So let's get a little bit of practice with expanding these ones. I've put in a whole bunch of different types. So there are ones where they're addition and subtraction, ones where just subtraction and subtraction. So look an eye out for the signs. When you're ready, press play on the video and we will go through the answers quickly. Okay, welcome back. So here we're going to go through. So 2x times by x is 2x squared. Our next term, we're going to get 2x times 1. So we're going to get plus 2x. Then we're going to get 1 times x, so plus x. And then 1 times 1, which is simply 1. So this is going to simplify down to 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. Moving down to the next one, we have, sorry, just trying to get a different pen. Move down to the next one, we have 2x times by x is 2x squared. 2x times by negative 1 is negative 2x. 1 times x is just simply x. And 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. We can simplify that down to 2x squared minus x minus 1. Next one we're going to do has 2x times by x. So we get 2x squared again. 2x times by negative 1, which is negative 2x. Then we have negative 1 times x, which is negative x. And negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. So this gives us in the end 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. Moving on to the fourth one. So the fourth one, if you notice, it's one of those ones where we have a case of the positive and a case of the negative. So see if you can't see a little trick when you're doing these ones. If you haven't seen it already, I'll explain it after. So we're doing 2x times by 2x. Sorry. 2x times by 2x, which is 4x squared. Then we have 2x times by negative 1, which is negative 2x. 1 times 2x, which is 2x. And 1 times negative 1, which is negative 1. So in the end, we're going to get 4x squared minus 1. Those two middle terms are going to cancel each other out. Now notice, I kind of alluded to it before, but if you look on this left-hand side here, notice when we have 2x plus 1, and we also have 2x minus 1. So when they differ by just a sign, it's the same number, but they differ by a sign right here and right here. Then what we're going to get is just the front times the front, so the 2x times 2x, and the number times the number. So we get 4x squared minus 1. Just like in other ones where we had, say, x plus 1, x minus 1, this resulted in x squared minus 1. Or we had one where it was x plus 4, x minus 4, and that's x squared minus 16. So the same follows for when we're doing where we have coefficients outside the front of x. So a little segue, but back on track for our last practice problem. So we have to first start out by writing this out as 2x minus 3 times by 2x minus 3. Right? So then what we're going to get is 2x times 2x, so 4x squared. 2x times minus 3 is, sorry, 2x times by minus 3 is minus 6x. And we have that twice because it was squared. And lastly, minus 3 times minus 3 is 9. So we can simplify those two inside terms, get minus 12x plus 9.